I'm just overwhelmed with your participation for this meeting and for your invitation to me for this meeting. And it speaks volumes about the fact that how much I enjoy your love and blessings. Today is a very important day in my life. Exactly 50 years back, on the same day, that's 1st May 1969, I became a member of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. And some 2 hours from now, I'll just complete exact 50 years because I attended the first RSS Shakha at 7 o'clock on 1st May 1969. I remember the time also. So for me to have, for me that's a very great auspicious day, and to have the blessings of so many dignified and intelligent, intellectual people today, and then as an environment minister, to receive these pious blessings. I call it green good deed in my own terminology, for which we are already in the process of developing a great social movement nationally and internationally. I have been to hundreds and thousands of national and international functions, but I don't remember if ever I got so much of blessing, green blessing, and then at the time of elections to have money plants. I think that's that's really fantastic. So I must salute you, sir, for your wisdom, and also I'm grateful that you have called me as an environment minister here. I was so happy to see the challenges of environment, development of technology and all, and I know we have very limited time to sort of spend here together. I didn't know that this meeting was so much about environment. And in environment, there are so many things that I would have loved to talk to you today. But still, I will just not shy from talking about it. It's a great subject, and certainly for me, it's a great blessing from my own Prime Minister, who, apart from science and technology and earth sciences, who asked me to handle this portfolio also some 2 years back. A number of references have been made to a number of things. I'll just make small references about everything so that it becomes a bit of thoroughly inclusive discussion. A mention was made about polio eradication. And this is a subject which has been so close to my heart, which gave me the opportunity to work for this subject for almost 2 decades, not only in India, but almost in 30-40 countries as an advisor for WHO. And just for the sake of your knowledge and information, because you may find it interesting, that I may tell you that how did this idea of a polio-free India came to me. I was forced to join politics in 1993 on October 12 by my organization. I was the most reluctant person to ever enter politics, but still I was asked to do that, and I contested my first election in October 93. And on 3rd of December, I was asked by Khurana ji to be part of his cabinet, and I took oath on that day. 17 days later, I was invited to a function in Maulana Azad Medical College. On 20th of December, Maulana Azad Medical College, they celebrate their old boys celebration. In fact, all the Molanians from all parts of the world, they come and collect there in the lawns of Maulana Azad Medical College. They stay there together for 2-3 days, and then. So while I was the chief guest at that function, while I was delivering my speech, I got a small paper, which was a note sent to me by some of my pediatrician friends. And it said, "We want to talk to you just after this function." So I just wrote okay and then sent it back. And when I came down after having delivered my speech, these doctors, they caught hold of me. They said, "We are not going to talk to you in front of all these people. You have to come with us to the other corner of the Maulana Azad lawns." And they took me there. And it's a long story. I have written all this in my book, A Tale of Two Drops, which was released by Atalji in 2004. So they said, "Dr. Harshvardhan, you are a doctor, you are an ENT surgeon. Are you aware that India is home to 60% of the polio cases of the whole world?" I said, "Sorry, I don't know this statistics, but I know that polio is quite rampant in India." And then they said, "Are you aware that 10% of these 60% cases of the whole world, they belong to Delhi?" I said, "Sorry, I really don't know this also." And then the next thing they said, "Do you know that the place from where you got elected to the Delhi Assembly, that's the Trans-Yamuna area of Delhi, it is home to maximum number of polio cases of the whole world?" It was such a big shock, all these statements. I said, "Honestly, I don't know all these." Then finally they said, "Are you aware that we can eradicate polio like we could do away with the smallpox in the 70s, and we could eradicate smallpox from the face of the earth? Are you aware that there is a strategy by which we can do that?" I said, "I know that we can handle polio by vaccinations. Giving vaccine for polio is a part of the universal immunization program. But I'm really not aware that we can eradicate polio from the face of the earth like we could do for smallpox." Then they said that in 1988, the World Health Organization had pledged in its World Health Assembly to wipe out polio from the face of the earth by year 2000. And a lot of people are working on it. It has been, eradicated from Pan-American countries. Brazil was the first one to do that, and then all those statistics and all. They said, we belong to the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. We have been running from pillar to post for the last 5 years, since the time WHO pledged. And everything that we talk to anybody, it is falling on deaf ears. We have gone to governments in the states, we have gone to the union government, we have gone to everyone concerned, relevant, but nothing works. So they said, "You have got this opportunity, and we should do something about it." So I'm just telling you because we had a long discussion for about half an hour on that subject. That was the 20th of December 1993. I came back home, and on the night between 20th and 21st, I literally could not sleep, and I don't know when and how, and maybe it was a God's blessing, a dream was born to do something about polio eradication. And the very next day, on 21st of December, I wrote to the WHO Southeast Asia Regional Office, called them and said, "Could you please send me everything that has been done about polio anywhere in the whole world?" And in another 24 hours, they sent me this much of bunch of papers about everything that had been done about polio in the whole world, including from the discovery of polio vaccine by Sabin and Salk, etc., etc. And then it took me almost 10 days to read all those papers. It had experiences of various countries. And it had experience of Brazil, it had experience of Philippines, it had experience of Iran, it had experience of number of nations. And then after having read all that, I was thoroughly convinced that if such and such and such and such countries can do concrete things about polio, if a country as vast as Brazil can eradicate polio in the 80s, why can't India do it? And that is from where we started our work. We started with a small core group of only 4 people, which had a health secretary and a management professor who was my friend from childhood, and 2 doctors, pediatricians, 1 professor of Maulana Azad Medical College and another leading practicing pediatrician. And we started working on it. You see, the problem was that the strategy required that every child had to be given the polio vaccine at the same time, because the polio virus, it survives only in the intestine of the small children. So when you give vaccine to the child, the vaccine, the wild polio virus in the intestine is replaced by the vaccine virus, which doesn't harm. And then you have to basically ensure that all the intestines in the, say, city, country, wherever, they are all replaced. Their wild polio virus is replaced by a vaccine virus, and when there is no place for the wild polio virus to sort of live, then ultimately you get rid of the disease. That's the basic scientific fact. So everybody said that how is it possible that you can bring every child to the to a center created in the city or in the country, and on the same day you bring every child, and in a country as vast as India, where you have maybe at that time we had almost over 100 million children and all, but that is, I am talking about Delhi itself. So it took us a lot of time to convince people, and the only conviction from which we started was that if this country can provide ballot papers to everyone in this country, it can create a system for providing ballot papers to every individual. It allows everyone to exercise his or her franchise on the same day. Why can't the same country develop a system, create a system to ensure that no child is crippled in this country further from poliomyelitis? That's how we started, and it's a long history. We had to struggle against all odds. Most of the people in the beginning used to think that there is some loose screw somewhere in the mind of the health minister, that he's all the time talking about polio. But I think we in fact spoke to almost people in 2,000 meetings like this for almost 9 months, and ultimately we could have everyone on board. And in fact, it's not Dr. Harshvardhan who did it. It's the whole country, the whole society, the whole lot of organizations from various fields who could do it. And when we could do it in Delhi successfully, then it's a long story. We ensured that there's a big movement in other states, and we initiated with the 4 BJP states at that time, and then ultimately prevailed upon the then Union Health Minister, Mr. Antule, who was a nice man and who ultimately gave me enough time at the Central Council of Health meeting, almost an hour, and big rooms to demonstrate how Delhi could do it successfully. And then this national program was launched in 95. And when we could do it in 95, the other Southeast Asian countries did it in 96. And then when India successfully did it, Nelson Mandela had come out of jail at that time. and he launched the kick polio out of Africa in South Africa, because they were not doing it, because India was not doing it. So, and then this whole movement had a lot of struggles, lot of problems, and a particular section of our population, they were all misguided, and it was said that this vaccine for polio causes impotence, and then people will hide their children. And then there were many districts in India which faced problem for many years. But the ultimately all is well that ends well. Though the world had pledged to eradicate polio from the whole world by 2000, we couldn't do that at that level. But India had its last case on 13th of January 2011 in Havra, West Bengal. After that, we haven't seen a case of polio in India. So the theme of this story was, for me, number one, India's DNA is such that everybody in this, because we involved virtually everybody in the society. And I don't remember any quarter in India where we did not get the adequate support. So I could come down to this conclusion that India has that inherent goodness in its blood, and if you really motivate and organize that goodness in the proper form, you can utilize the society to actually do that. And the second thing that I could derive as conclusion was that if you work with commitment and sincerity and with the passion for anything which is seemingly impossible to do or achieve, then you get the support of the whole society, you get the blessing of God, and then even seemingly impossible tasks can be made possible. Because nobody used to believe that India can ever be polio free. So we are now a polio free nation, so that's one part of it. The reference was made about tobacco. I just want to tell you that I, being an ENT surgeon, I had witnessed the life of hundreds and thousands of my patients whom I, in fact, inspired to quit smoking and stop using tobacco. But those who never listened to my advice, I have seen hundreds of them suffering from cancer of the oral cavity and other places, and then dying in front of my own eyes. So one important thing that I started along with the polio in '94 was to start working for a legislation, because at that time there were some laws or some sort of regulations and rules in 100 countries of the whole world when we started talking about it in India. They were, in some countries had rules, some had regulations, some had stringent laws. And I read all those regulations, and then we framed a committee, and then we in fact enacted the first Delhi prohibition of smoking and non-smokers health protection bill. Because as a doctor, as a person with a scientific bent of mind, I knew that one who smokes, as compared to that, the one who doesn't smoke but he inhales the smoke of the smoker, he is 45 times more vulnerable to develop cancer. That's, you can say, so many technical aid, that side stream smoke has 45 types of more carcinogens, etc., etc. So we created this first law, and since a lot of advocates are there, this law became the darling of many, you see, great sections of the society, including your judiciary. And the Supreme Court at that time, in fact, gave an order that this law must be replicated and framed by all the state governments in the country. And that's how this law was in fact replicated in all the states, and then at the national level. And then you will be happy to know that in 2001 came a time when 170 countries of the whole world, they signed an agreement called the FCTC. This is a Framework Convention for Tobacco Control. where they signed a strategy that, like international human rights, all of us will work together with same energy, same strategy, same formula, same parameters together. And this great thing also was launched for the whole world in New Delhi by our own Prime Minister, our adorable Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, in the presence of one of your own legal stalwart, Mr. Ram Jethmalani, who happened to be the law minister at that time, and also had the benign presence, means the great presence of the Director General of WHO, Dr. Brundtland, who was the former Prime Minister of Norway. So, and then from that time point onwards, we haven't looked back. When I had the opportunity to become Union Health Minister for 6 months, I ensured that in the regulations which were framed for FCTC and which were followed, we were on the 135th position in terms of following a lot of things. So we introduced this 85% warning on all sides of the tobacco, this cigarette packets and all. And from that 135th position, we moved down to first position in the whole world, where we had the most stringent this thing.